Your cardinal knew before you did. You were not looking for a sign. You are not the kind of person who looks for signs. And then it appeared, a flash of red at your window, on the fence post, on the branch closest to where you were sitting, right in the middle of the hardest days of your life, and something in you went completely still. Welcome to the Robin Files. I study the psychology and behavior of wild birds and the relationship they build with the people who watch them. Today, I want to talk to you about the northern cardinal, specifically about 7 things your cardinal may be doing that most people never get the science to understand. Stay with me all the way through, because sign number 5 is the one that, in my experience, people find they simply cannot explain away. Let us begin. Sign 1. Your cardinal arrived within days of a loss, and it did not leave. If you have lived this moment, you know exactly what I am describing. Someone you loved passed, a parent, a partner, a sibling, a dear friend, and within a very short time, sometimes within hours, your cardinal appeared somewhere very close to you, not passing through, staying, on the kitchen sill, on the porch railing, on the branch just outside the window of the room where you were sitting alone. And then it came back the next morning, and the morning after that. This experience has been shared between grieving families for generations. It has been printed on memorial cards and stitched into pillows and passed quietly between people who did not quite know how to say what they had seen. And yet, underneath all of that, there is a layer of behavioral biology that most people never hear about. Your cardinal does not migrate. It is, by nature, a year-round resident of the territory it has chosen. Once a cardinal has decided on a garden, a yard, a window ledge, it genuinely returns to it. Its presence is not accidental. In the most literal biological sense, your cardinal has made a decision to be there. And, after a loss, when the house has gone quiet in a way it has never gone quiet before, that stillness is exactly what draws your cardinal in. Hold that thought. We will return to it. Sign 2. Your cardinal visits at the moments that break you open. This is what separates a bird passing through from something that feels like a message. It is not that your cardinal appears once and disappears. It is that it appears precisely when something is happening. When you are sitting in their chair for the first time. When you are opening a drawer you have been avoiding. When the grief you have been holding together finally breaks open when you are alone. Researchers who study bereavement have a name for these moments. They are called continuing bonds experiences, the documented, peer-reviewed sense that a person who has died remains present in some form. Studies published in journals on grief and loss have found that between 40 and 80% of widows and widowers report experiencing this. And among those accounts, the presence of birds appears more frequently than any other external element. Your cardinal, specifically, is the most commonly reported bird in these records. Now, is your cardinal tracking your emotional state? The science would say no. But here is what the science does say. Cardinals are acutely sensitive to human behavior within their territory. Research from the Cornell Lab of Ornithology confirms they notice changes in how people move, how still people become, where people go quiet. And grief, from the outside, looks like extraordinary stillness, a different kind of presence, slower, lower, open in a way that ordinary daily life rarely is. Your cardinal is drawn to that stillness. Whether you choose to call that biology or something older than biology is entirely yours to decide. Sign 3. It comes alone. This is one of the most consistently reported details in these accounts, and it is worth staying on for a moment. When people describe the visits that feel significant, the ones they still speak about years later, your cardinal almost always comes alone, not with a flock, not with a mate visible nearby, one bird. And it comes, specifically, to where you are. Cardinals are not solitary by default. Outside of breeding season, they form loose groups. They forage together. They move in small flocks, and yet the visits that carry weight are almost always singular. There is no single scientific explanation for this, but there are documented behavioral patterns that make it far less surprising than it first appears. Male cardinals are intensely territorial. A single male will patrol and return to a specific area, with a consistency that is, frankly, remarkable. If your cardinal has decided that your garden, your porch, Your window is part of his territory. He will come back to it alone. Every day, as a matter of deep instinct. That kind of loyalty is real. Your cardinal has not wandered in. He has chosen this space, and in choosing it, he has become a constant, recognizable presence in the middle of a season of your life when almost nothing else feels constant. For someone in grief, that matters more than it is easy to put into words. The world has become unpredictable and painful. And then there is your cardinal, alone, returning, faithful. Sign 4. Your cardinal looks directly at you, and it holds the gaze. I want to stay on this because it is the detail people most often struggle to describe. It feels too significant to say plainly, and yet the science behind it is genuinely extraordinary. Birds have what researchers call a fovea, a concentrated area of extremely high visual acuity on each eye. Unlike humans, who focus on things by looking straight ahead, birds must turn their heads sideways to bring their sharpest vision onto something that interests them. When your cardinal turns its head and appears to be looking directly at you with one eye, that is not a casual glance. That is focused, deliberate attention. Your cardinal is studying you with its best vision. Cardinals have been observed in behavioral research, spending extended periods in what scientists describe as vigilant observation near calm human presence. They watch, they assess. They are not indifferent to you. And there is something more remarkable still. Research into bird cognition, including peer-reviewed work on passerine birds, has established that many songbirds can distinguish between individual human faces. Your cardinal may not simply be visiting a garden. It may be visiting you, specifically recognizing your face, returning to you. The idea that a bird could know you, could single you out in a crowd of neighbors or passers-by, is not science fiction. It is documented reality. That changes the weight of the moment, I think. Sign 5. The song changes, and it sounds like nothing else you have ever heard from a bird. Cardinals are among the most vocally complex songbirds in the world. Both the male and the female sing, which is already unusual. Most female songbirds do not. Your northern cardinal does, and the songs are not fixed. They are learned. They are varied, and, most remarkably, they respond and adapt in real time to what is happening in the environment around them. Researchers at Ohio State University have documented that cardinals alter their vocal patterns based on social context. They sing differently when alarmed versus when completely at ease, differently when competing for territory versus when communicating with a mate. When your cardinal sings softly and persistently, near a still, quiet human, not an alarm call, not a territorial warning, but a low, unhurried, repeated song, researchers associate that specific vocal pattern with a behavioral state of calm engagement, of presence without threat, of, for want of a better phrase, being with something. Families who have lost someone often describe a cardinal that sang to them in a way that felt unlike any bird sound they had heard before. Quieter, more intimate, as though it was not broadcasting to the surrounding territory, as though it was just talking. I cannot tell you what that means in the terms you might most want to hear, but I can tell you that what grieving families have been describing for generations, a song that felt as though it was meant only for them, is entirely consistent with what your cardinal actually does. Sign 6. Your cardinal mates for life, and when one is lost, the other returns. This fact alone has brought more comfort to more people in grief than almost anything else in this video. Northern cardinals form pair bonds that last for years, sometimes for the entirety of their lives in the wild. They feed each other. During nesting season, the male brings seeds to his mate and places them gently in her beak. In a gesture that has been documented in ornithology as mate feeding, a behavior so careful and deliberate, it has been described as the closest thing in the bird world to a kiss. And when a cardinal loses its partner, researchers have observed the surviving bird returning to the places they shared together. Returning, waiting, calling. For someone who has lost a partner of 30 or 40 or 50 years, that is not a small piece of information. Your cardinal is a creature that understands, in its own biological way, what it means to build a life alongside one person, what it means to keep returning to the spaces that person once occupied, what it means to call into a silence that no longer answers, And in traditions across centuries, across cultures and continents, the cardinal has come to represent precisely this. The persistence of love past the point where love should logically be able to persist. Sign 7. It returns on the days you forgot to protect yourself from. This is the sign people speak about years later. Not the first visit, which is unforgettable and stunning, but the visit that comes 6 months later, a year later, 3 years later, on the hard anniversary, on what would have been a birthday, on an ordinary Tuesday morning when the grief arrives again, with all of its original weight, and you were not prepared for it, because you had been fine, because it had been a long time, and there is your cardinal, again, at the window, on the fence, on the branch just outside the room where you are sitting. Grief does not move in a straight line. Anyone who has lived it knows this. There are stretches of relative calm, and then there are mornings when the loss is as raw and immediate as it was on the very first day. And it is on precisely those mornings, according to the accounts of hundreds of thousands of families, that your cardinal appears. Is that confirmation bias? Possibly. We notice things more readily when we are emotionally open to them. That is a real and documented psychological phenomenon, and I will not pretend otherwise. But I will tell you this. Your cardinal is one of the only birds that stays with you through every season. It does not leave when winter comes. It does not migrate towards something warmer and easier. It stays in the territory it has chosen. It returns to the same places, year after year, through every kind of weather and every kind of grief. The ornithologist will say it is territorial loyalty and food source memory. The grieving daughter will say it is her mother. And I genuinely think, that both of those things can be true at exactly the same time. Before we close, I want to say something directly to you. If you have watched this far, there is probably a reason. Maybe your cardinal appeared at a moment like the ones we have described today. Maybe you were a little afraid to say it plainly, because you did not want to be someone who sees what they want to see, who feels what they need to feel, and mistakes it for something real. You are not that person. You are someone who paid attention. And your cardinal, this loyal, intelligent, singing, life-mating, yard-choosing bird, is genuinely worth paying attention to. So, leave the window unobstructed. Step outside in the early morning, and if your cardinal appears at the moment you needed it most, let yourself receive it. I want to hear from you. Have you had a cardinal visit at a moment like the ones we have talked about today? A specific loss, a specific day, a moment when the bird appeared, and something in you just went quiet and you knew? Tell me about it in the comments. These are the stories I carry with me. I read every single one.